Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, Love Letters to Pam. Of course, some of you watch this via our YouTube channel, Traveling with Jack and Pam. And so if you're listening, though, you may not be able to see a couple of things I'm going to be showing you, but I am going to talk about them as well. Today, I was struck by something that I felt I do need to share with everyone. Recently, a Christian author by the name of Randy Alcorn. I don't know how many of you have heard of Randy, but not long ago, he lost his lovely wife, Nanci. And they'd been married about as long as Pam and I had. And this one kind of hit me hard because Randy had been someone that I looked to for encouragement and support through his writings and such. In fact, he wrote a book, and the video screen will turn this backwards. If you're listening to the podcast, it won't matter to you. But Randy wrote this really, really wonderful book, and if you've not read it, I want to highly recommend it. It's called 50 Days of Heaven, Reflections that Bring Eternity to Light. And again, it was written by Randy Alcorn. This book was given to me in the early days, shortly after I lost Pam. And I found a great deal of comfort inside this book and what it had to say about heaven and eternity. And again, confirming, at least in my Christian beliefs, that this is not the end, but really, when we go from this life, it's only the beginning. But now I have often reflected back on the fact that Randy, who wrote those books, has now lost his lovely bride. And he's having to deal with this deep, deep sense of loss. And I was doing a little bit of research and looking back on some of the things he had written. And then I ran across a letter that he had written, basically about what his loss was like since losing his Nanci. And I basically just want to read to you the letter that he wrote, because I think he captures everything that I've said probably many times in the podcast. He captures everything that many of you have said and thought as well. But we often talk about there's sometimes some comfort in knowing that we're sharing this journey together. And when somebody like Randy Alcorn, who has been looked up to by so many for strength and guidance through loss, and through his writings, and especially this book about the 50 days of heaven, it can be somewhat comforting to know that, and I want this to come across correctly, but to know that this hits him as hard as it hits us as well. No matter how strong our faith is, it's still really, really tough. And I know I've had a lot of friends and relatives who lately too have been sending me some video clips of the actor John Snyder, who was in The Dukes of Hazzard, and about his expressions of loss of his wife. And I know too, I did a message not long ago saying that I'm pretty well done talking grief, and I really am in some sense of, I don't want to necessarily get into opinions and things like that, but more I just want to give you things that I'm now seeing and observing out there in the world with others who are going through grief, and just sharing that with you now. So it's not all about me, it's not all about my loss, but it's also about what's happening with others. And I think with what happened with John Snyder, and now with what has happened with Randy Alcorn, it just again comes back home to us that, we're all going to eventually give up this life on earth. And if you're a believer in Christ, you'll receive your greater reward in heaven. Does it make the loss any easier? No, it doesn't. And I think that's part of what I want to read you in this letter. I actually printed it out, and I'm just going to read it to you. And again, this is Randy Alcorn talking about the loss recently of his lovely wife, Nanci. And I can already feel myself getting a little emotional trying to read the letter, but it's important, and I want to read the letter to you because I think any of us, we could change the name in this letter from Nanci to, in my case, Pam, to, in your case, Cindy, or maybe Bob, or Joanne, or Marty, or whomever it is. But here I go, or here is how Randy wrote it. And I don't think Randy would mind me sharing this because, again, it was out there. He had done a public message with this letter. He says, and I've taken a few things out. I'm not going to read word for word every paragraph. But anyway, shortly after he lost Nanci, he writes, I've been reflecting on the changes in our home with Nanci gone now. The house is so quiet without the sound of her laughter. There's a profound sense of absence. He says, I'm struck by my loss of a sense of time. Time is fluid. 2 weeks after Nanci died, it seemed like it happened yesterday. Yet, in another sense, it seemed long ago. Even before she died, I had to look at my watch, not to see what time it was, but what day it was, and occasionally what month. Reminders of her absence are everywhere. The mail she sorted through, the bills she paid, the giving checks she wrote on our behalf, the things in our freezer and the cupboards, the groceries we bought together. He says, on April 3rd, I sent my daughter Karina a birthday greeting, like I always do. And it suddenly occurred to me that Nanci always sends the cards, the presents. Well, I can relate to that. So I thanked God for Amazon and emailed Karina a gift card. Been there, done that. There were movies we were waiting to watch together when they came out. Now I can watch them, but I'm aware how much more fun it would have been to watch them with her. I hear about the next season of a show we enjoyed, and my instinctive reaction is to tell Nanci so we can watch it together. I'm learning all the things Nanci did over the years that I didn't see or think about. Like the clothes that were always magically in my drawers and hanging in the closet. I started learning to do the wash in Nanci's final year. This is harder than I thought because it really hits home, and I know it does with you as well. But he goes on to say, but she had to tell me what to do and how much detergent and fabric softener to use. Now she isn't here to remind me. So when I didn't have something to wear, I realized it was time to wash clothes. Not long ago, I was looking at a bottle that only said all. But nowhere did it say detergent. Apparently, I was the only person in the world who didn't know it was laundry detergent. I had to call my daughter Angela for help. It's true that I haven't lost Nanci because I know where she is. I'm not concerned about her safety or well-being because she is safely home and better off than she ever was in the world under the curse. But I miss her so much. I frequently have the instinct to tell Nanci, yet I'm so aware of where she is. I often ask Jesus to tell her about her grandson's tennis and track accomplishments. And I have no doubt he does. As I can't think of a single reason he wouldn't. He goes on to write, we wanted to grow old together. If you told us when we got married at 21 that we would live to be 68, we would have said we did grow old together. But when you're 68, it's like the new 48. Nanci and I were married in 1975. We were best friends from the day we met as freshmen in high school, December 7th, 1968. She was my closest friend. for 53 and a half years. This is a privilege and a treasure. And I will not regret the years we might have had, but be profoundly grateful for the years we did have. And not just the quantity, but the quality. Her homegoing has left a great hole in my life. But isn't that what I would want? Healthy sorrow recognizes the size of the loss. The only way for the sorrow to be less would be for the loss to be less. Would I choose to have less pain because she meant less to me? Of course not. Sorrow can be great even while we recognize it to be temporary. Nanci's death wasn't the end of our relationship. It was only an interruption to be followed by the great reunion. Again, those are the words of Randy Alcorn, an amazing Christian man who's written some amazing books and is one on 50 Days in Heaven of Heaven. I would highly recommend you check that one out. I apologize for getting emotional reading that, but I think any of you that have gone through loss, you can understand why. And I'm betting as I read those words, you were shaking your head yes. I mean, when he mentioned how they met in high school and got married at 21, that was me and Pam. Indeed, it was 10 or 12 years later after he'd done. They were several years older than Pam and I, but still, I can so relate. You know, I lost Pam about 10 years younger than he did Nanci. And I relate so much to that part about if we had, when we were 21, said we were going to live to be 58, 59 years old, we would have said, wow, we lived a long time. But again, hopefully this meant a little something to you. I know it did to me. And maybe as you say your prayers and think of others, think of our friend Randy Alcorn, who has meant so much to so many through his words of comfort and his writings. And now he needs our support too. It's a tough road, isn't it? It's a tough, tough road. That's about it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I always like to say, make it a great day, better yet, a better tomorrow, but sometimes that seems just a little hard, doesn't it? Make it a better tomorrow. I don't know if we can let's just get through tomorrow, okay? Take it one day at a time. We'll see you later now. Bye.